Good morning and happy Father's Day to everybody. We have a special father visiting us today to speak. This is Ron Greer. He is the retired counselor from Peachtree Road United Methodist Church, and he's been there for 40 years, giving advice and direction to many, many people, I'm sure. We are blessed to have him come and give us a word today. And welcome, Ron. And Ron brought a friend along to give him extra support, right? As if he needs support. Thank
Just put it around my neck.
Just around your neck. Green light should be on too.
Good morning.
Got it.
Yeah, standing up is a bit more of a challenge than it used to be. It is always a joy. Y'all, you know that I was telling Charlotte earlier, y'all know you are my home away from home. This is my Sunday school class when I'm not in New Beginnings. The New Beginnings is a class that I have been in for, I don't know, 40 years or so there at Peachtree Road. And the thing that I love uh, about the CUC class is the same thing that I love about New Beginnings. Think of the title, think of the name of each of our classes. Each of them point to the fact that we are in process, that we are in motion. We are Christians under construction. We haven't arrived anywhere. We're on the journey. The best is yet to be. We are refining ourselves. We are becoming finer and finer. And the way you describe it so beautifully, and the countless times, and my dear friend Martha will tell you the number of times that I tell people about I'm going to teach the CUC class. And then I can't wait to say, let me tell you what it stands for. I love the name because of what it points to. I love our class's name for what it points to. We are always under construction. We are always beginning anew, as we say in New Beginnings.
Well, you bless us every time you come.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. And this class, and this class
I need
blesses.
to interrupt.
Sure, you go right ahead.
You're not catching you.
And this class blesses me every time I come as well. Where's Pat? Pat. Yes,
Said it's okay.
Pat,
Okay.
correct? Do I have your name right? The lady back on the third row who was making the announcements? What? Okay. Had my names mixed up. What do you, there was, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you gotta go microphone. You gotta get here.
Oh, this is for the
That's special.
recording. Thank you. What you were saying, the couple of things that you said I thought were very important. But one of them had to do with you were quoting Malone on, as I understood you, on Father's Day, that Malone would not say, well, all the fathers stand. He would say, all the men stand, because we are all fathers. We're all fathers. Even if we may be fathers biologically, but we are all fathers in terms of the mentorship that we bring, in terms of the relationships we develop, in terms of the people that look up to us. Let me tell you a quick story. I have been teaching the CUC class for a number of years now, and I'm sure early on I spoke about integrity, and one of my books is his own integrity. I'm sure I told that. Let me tell you something that I have learned since I taught that lesson. Let me tell the story again. The title of the book is If You Know Who You Are, You'll Know What to Do. Okay, those are not my words. Those are the words of a quote of a man named Henrik Kramer. And let me tell the story again and then tell you what I've learned. Henrik Kramer was a lay Dutch missionary in the mid part of the last century from Holland. He spent most of his life away from his native Holland in Indonesia as a lay missionary. When the Second World War broke out and the Nazi were sending Dutch Jews to places called Buchenwald and Dachau. A group of lay people came to see Henrik Kramer. They came late at night, knocked on his door, and he took them back to his study. And they said to him, Dr. Kramer, we have got to do something for our nation, and we've got to do it now. Please, please, if you can, tell us what we are to do. And Henrik Kramer said, I will not tell you what to do. I will tell you who you are. And if you know who you are, then you will know what to do. And he opened his Bible to 1 Peter and he began to read, for you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a dedicated nation, a people claimed by God as his own, called to proclaim the triumphs of him who has called you out of darkness and into his marvelous light. And with that, he closed his Bible. He looked up to this group and he said, do you know who you are? Then you'll know what to do. And that night they went out and formed the Dutch resistance. Okay. I'm sure I've told you that story before. I was teaching that class. I was teaching on that same topic to another Sunday school class, one there at Peachtree Road. And someone came up to me after the class. They had read the book, so they knew the story. Came up to me after the class, and they gave me a framed photograph of the Dutch resistance. And here were these young men and women. All of them had to have been in their 20s. These young men and women who were turning to Henrik Kramer as their father figure, who were turning to Henrik Kramer as their mentor, turning to Henrik Kramer as their guide, and he guided them magnificently. There isn't a man in this room, in this church, or in this nation that isn't a father figure to one, if not many, young men and women in this world. So today is Father's Day. Every man is to be honored on Father's Day because every man is either a father biologically or a grandfather or a grandfather biologically, or is a father to countless who are looking up to him and are being inspired by him. So happy Father's Day, gentlemen. Today is the 116th anniversary of the first Father's Day. The Father's Day has a different history from Mother's Day in becoming a national holiday. It has for us one big parallel. Father's Day and Mother's Day were both founded in Methodist churches. Say amen, church. Mother's Day was founded May the 12th, 1907 in Andrews Methodist Church in Grafton, West Virginia. And it was inspired by a young lady named Anna Reeves Jarvis in honor of her mother, Anna. Her mother, Anne. Father's Day, June 19th, 1910, at churches in Spokane, Washington, inspired by a sermon 2 years before at Spokane Central Methodist Episcopal Church. And in 1910, it was inspired by a woman named Sonora Smart Dodd in honor of her father. So the origins are quite similar. Both are out of profound respect for their parents, and both were in what became eventually Methodist churches They each had their origin in Methodism. But the paths to becoming a national holiday are light years apart. Mother's Day was met with enthusiasm. They're in Grafton Methodist Church, rather, in West Virginia. Good gracious, it was like a house of fire. It was in 1907. By 1910, it was a holiday throughout West Virginia. And then in 1914, just 7 years later, Woodrow Wilson signed it as a national holiday, that Mother's Day on that Sunday each May would be a national holiday. As Mother's Day was met with enthusiasm, Father's Day becoming a national holiday was met with a little less enthusiasm. As I said, it took 7 years from the first Mother's Day in this local church. It took 7 years for it to become a national holiday. It took, and this is where I did a meticulous counting of the years. It took for Father's Day to become a national holiday. It took exactly forever. The idea of Father's Day was born in 1910, and it was finally, gentlemen, this is, I mean, this is huge. It is humbling for us. First one was in 1910. It was finally passed by Congress after 4 times it was defeated. It was finally passed by Congress and signed by President Nixon in 1972. But we all remember, I remember well, as I'm 79, I remember well when I was a child celebrating Father's Day long before 1972 in the 50s and 60s. Of course, we celebrated Father's Day, though it was not a national holiday. And that is thanks to, are you ready? That is thanks to the Associated Men's Wear Retailers.
They wanted to sell ties.
That's exactly it. You nailed it. You nailed it. The Associated, what a name, the Associated Men's Wear Realtors. See, you get this information only here. Keep showing up for class. You get useful stuff here, I'm telling you. The men's wear retailers are the ones that promoted it. They thought it would be a good idea. And so starting in the 1930s, they started promoting the idea. And of course, they did it only because they thought that fathers were so exemplary and did such a marvelous job in parenting. Of course, that was the reason. And by the way, why not give them a tie? So Father's Day was largely carried by raw commercialism. There's the rest of the story to both Mother's Day and Father's Day, and it is a much more tender story. I will briefly tell the Mother's Day one because I want to honor all of us. The Mother's Day story: Anna Jarvis in Grafton, West Virginia, wanted to honor her mother, Anne Reeves Jarvis, who lived in Webster, West Virginia. Her mother lived during the Civil War. Webster, West Virginia was right on. By the way, where is it, Pat? What time do I need to hush? It's 10, quarter off. Okay. Uh,
You're all done.
okay. Would you raise your hand in 5 minutes till a quarter off? Thank you. Webster, West Virginia. Her mother, Anne, she worked as an unofficial nurse for her brother prior to the Civil War. Her brother was a physician. He was a doctor there in Webster, and she worked with him, and she worked with whatever patients came in the door. And so the Civil War broke out, and Webster was right on the boundary between the Union and the Confederate. And she was working with Union soldiers and healing them. She was working with Confederate soldiers and healing them because she was right there on the boundary, and she worked with and healed anyone that walked in the door. She was a wonderful lady. And Ann did, and if we're ever together on Mother's Day, I'll tell you more about Ann, but she was remarkable. But after the Civil War was over, then the soldiers from the North and the South returned to Webster. Yeah, it was a little tense. We think Alabama Auburn is tense. We got nothing that they returned after literally shooting at each other. They returned to their hometown. And Ann Jarvis organized, let me see exactly what it was, the Mother's Friendship Day, in which the mothers of those who fought for the Confederacy, the mothers of those who fought for the Union, would all cook, and they had a picnic that day where they sat down together. She brought them together, and in Webster, West Virginia, the healing that day began. Anna Reeves Jarvis, fast forward, 1907, Anna Reeves Jarvis wanted to honor her late mother, and her late mother was honored, and all mothers are honored by Mother's Day. Father's Day. Sonora Smart Dodd, Spokane, Washington. After hearing a sermon 2 years before on Mother's Day about motherhood, she wanted to honor her father. She had passionate respect for her father, William Smart. He was a farmer there in Washington. Her father lost his wife, Sonora's mother, as she gave birth to their sixth child. Sonora was their oldest child. She was 16 when she lost her mother. And she then became the lone sister to 5 brothers. Can you imagine? Yeah. Then, as a 16-year-old, she and her father put on their big boy and big girl britches, and they began the task of rearing these 5 young men, these 5 children, these 5 boys. And she watched her father farm through the day to support the family and then love all 6 of them each evening. And of course, she was wonderfully supportive to him. But she watched him love them. She watched him model for them the kind of values that they held dear. And she joined him in countless ways in rearing those children, as I said. His life was fathering and farming to provide for his family. He deeply loved his children. She held him in the highest regard. So after hearing the sermon in 1908, in 1910, she went to her pastor after he had preached that sermon some months before, and she said, and I quote, "I liked everything you said about motherhood. However, don't you think fathers deserve a place in the sun too?" And so he then began the organization, and in 1910, several churches in Spokane, Washington, had what was the first Father's Day. She had gained much, valued, and learned much from her father. And so as I listen to the life of Sonora, and I reflect on the father that I had, and all the father figures in my life who have guided me, of all the moments I've experienced, I absolutely join you in celebration of these men who have been in my life and in yours, who have taught us so much, from whom we have gained so much of the values that we have learned and the values that we hold dearly. The values that I have learned come from various sources throughout my life. But primarily they come from those two parents of mine, one of whom I want to focus on today. When I think of values, I go back to a conversation that I had with a friend of mine. He he did various things, but one of the things he did was to appraise. And he appraised, among his specialties was he would appraise firearms. And so he was telling me a story about going into this man. This man was so proud of his collection of firearms. And so he invited him into his home, and then they went back to his library. I just imagine the walnut or whatever, the oak paneling. He went back there where he had his collection of firearms. And he kind of rushed him back there. He was so excited for an actual appraiser to see it. And so he said, "Give me a moment." And so he walked around the room looking at the collection. And finally, the man could not hold himself back any longer. He said, "What do you think of my collection?" Long pause. And my friend said, "You don't have a collection." I said, "What on earth are you talking about?" He said, "You don't have a collection. You have an accumulation." That has stayed with me over all these years. You have an accumulation. And I said, "Please tell me the difference." And he said, "A collection is put together with reflection and intentionality." Okay. I grew up, as we all did, from my parents, from my family, from my community. I grew up with an accumulation of perspectives and attitudes and values. What I have done with my life is what you have done with yours. I have refined, I have looked at those different values and attitudes and perspectives with which I have grown up, and I have embraced some and I have discarded others that were not worthy. Okay? In order to make it a collection. And when I look at my collection of values and morals and those attitudes to which I aspire, every one of them were embraced by my father and by my mother. They embodied the core of what I value. Today, being Father's Day, there are primarily two father figures. As I have said several times, I'm guided by countless father figures, but there are primarily two that have stood out to me as my mentors, and that's my father and my father-in-law. They were both absolutely remarkable and exceptional men. Today, I'm not here to talk about these two men, but I mention them only as reminders to stimulate your memories of your fathers and your father figures. And secondly, for those of you who are fathers and grandfathers and father figures to your community, reminders of the power of your influence. When I think of fatherhood this morning, I think of the Christian values we live, the Christian values we embody, the values, of course, for our children, our grandchildren, and for our community we model. The beautiful scripture comes to mind that Pat was reading earlier. The righteous man walks in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. If the righteous man walks in his integrity, integrity comes from the root word integer. That we learned in math class early on, it meant a whole number in math. More broadly, integer means whole, wholeness, complete. A righteous man walks in his integrity. We are whole. We are unified. We are living in sync, congruent. I live with integrity in that my thinking and my feeling and my living are in harmony. They are in sync. The values that I believe in, the values that I aspire to, and the values then that I live out are all the same. They are in harmony. They are in sync. As it is often said, my head, my heart, and my hands are of one accord. The righteous man walks in his integrity, and in so doing, he models, he mentors, he teaches as a father figure all who see him. 3 lessons I learned from the father figures in my life. Number 1, character. If you know who you are, you'll know what to do. If you know your values, if you know what matters in your life, you'll know what to do. If you know your values, you will know how to live them out, and you will be inspired and you will aspire to living out those very values. My father and my father-in-law, but here I think of my father-in-law, he had 3 children. And every time, once they got teenage on, every time they would leave the house to go out with a group, to go out on a date, to go out for anything social, every time he would say to his sons and his daughter, every time, he would call them by name and he would point to them and he would say, remember who you are. Wow. As we say just across the way over there, that'll preach. Remember who you are. What are your values? Live them. Have them in your head, have them in your focus, have them in your heart, aspire to them, and then live them. Number 1, character. The second, when I when I look to the father figures in my life, the second attribute that I think of is respect. Respect. Every human being is deserving of my respect. Every human being. It does not matter where I cross paths with them. It doesn't matter where we meet. It doesn't matter what their station is in life, their race, their ethnic origin, any of that. Every human being is worthy of my respect. I shall never forget. I grew up in a little town I know you want to know where I grew up. This is riveting stuff, okay? Take notes if you like, I grew up in a little town outside of Shreveport, Louisiana called Minden. And its only claim to fame is there is an exit sign on I-20. And it's a town of 12,000 people, and I grew up in the 1950s, born in 47. And we had the Rome of the town. That was back in the day, and you could just walk all over town at whatever age as a kid. So we would just roam the town. And so my dad was an accountant in downtown Minden, and so I would wander downtown, and I would wander in, and I'd done that one summer day. And I was up there wasting his receptionist time up at the front desk, and we were chatting. And my dad heard my voice. And he called out from down the hallway. He called out, Ronnie, come back here. So Ronnie went back. And I stepped into his office. And this is, as best I can guesstimate, I was probably about 12. So I guess this was like in 1959. And so I stepped into my dad's office. And in 1959, small southern town, sitting with him in his office was a black man. That didn't happen in 1959 in a small southern town. It was a black man.
Southern Alabama.
Sir,
Not in southern Alabama,
No,
for sure.
and not in northern Louisiana either.
Right.
That's right. And here was a black man with a suit and tie. And he said, Ronnie would like for you to meet him. And so I met him. We shook hands, sat down, and it was summertime. So he was asking me about what baseball team I was on. And so we chatted about what position I was playing, how the summer was going. And then there was a pause in the conversation. And this man said to me, do you know why I'm here? And I said, no, sir, I don't have any idea. And he said, you know, on the white side of town, y'all have got the swimming pool over at Victory Park. And that's where y'all can go swimming. But over, as he phrased it, of course, in that day, he said, over on the colored side of town, we just have to find whatever bayou or swamp or creek we can find to go swimming in. And your daddy doesn't think that's right. And so your daddy is raising funds so we can build a swimming pool on our side of the town. I was telling a friend about this maybe 5 years ago, and Phil said, oh, I know exactly where that swimming pool is. He said it's no longer a pool anymore, but the bones of it are still there. And so I looked it up on Google, and there it is, in the middle of what was the black section of town. And there's the frame of that swimming pool. And of course, there are new pools now. But in 1959, I don't think that's right. Your dad doesn't think that's right, that we have to swim out there with those water moccasins and occasionally an alligator in Louisiana. He doesn't think that's right. So I grew up learning about respect from a man that respected every human being I saw him come into contact with. And then the third value that stands out to me when I think of Father's Day is compassion. Again, I'm not focused on my father. I'm simply telling you stories from the only father I had. I want it to remind you of two things, of your father and your father figures and the lessons you learned. And secondly, for it to remind you of the power you bring as men in your families and as men in your community, that you can make this kind of difference. And I'm using my father and my father-in-law as examples in that. Compassion. Compassion. See.
You're good.
Thank you. I shall always remember we were on our way. No, it's a good story. It's a good story. It really is. It went like here. I promise it's a good story. Oh my gosh, I'm just not convinced. Y'all sing pretty. I tell you, I love coming to this class. I have the best time with y'all. Okay, I gotta get serious here. Always remember, we were taking a family trip. I have an older brother, just the four of us, so two boys. Family trip, and we always stop regularly to get a Coca-Cola and a peanut butter cracker. And so we had stopped. And as we were coming out of the convenience store, I was leading the way. And so I'm coming between these two cars to get to our family car. And as I'm coming through between these two cars, a lady comes the opposite way between these same two cars, and this car is hers. So I stopped to let her get in her car. And so she steps up to the driver's door and she reaches down. And as she reaches for the door handle, I'm looking at the thinnest hand I've ever seen in my life. It was just the thinnest hand I've ever seen. I'll leave it at that. And I was just struck by that. And she reaches down to open the car door, and it won't budge. She can't open it. Well, I'm a decent kid, but I'm like, 9 years old. I didn't know what, and I remember this moment. It was that powerful to me for some reason. But I remember this moment because I'm standing there looking at this lady. She is so frail. Looking at this lady, and I'm thinking two things. Number one is I want to help her, but number two is I don't want to embarrass her. So I didn't know what to do. I was a decent kid, as I say, but I didn't know what to do. So I'm the proverbial deer in the headlights. I stand there. And then this big figure comes walking past me. It's my father. He steps up to this lady. Are you ready? He steps up to this lady and he says, "You know, sometimes those door handles get stuck and they are so hard to open. Do you mind if I try?" My father had the biggest hands of anybody I knew. He reached down with that big hand of his, and God is my witness, he paused so it wouldn't look too easy. He paused, and slowly he opened her car door. And she said, "Thank you." And with relief and gratitude, she got into her car. That was the man I have modeled, as I've done the best I can to model my life after. Sometimes those handles get stuck and are so hard to open. Do you mind if I try? Compassion. Character. When I think of Father's Day, I think of character, respect, and compassion. In the years, thank you. Bye. Well, there goes that story. I mean, thank you. Thank you very much. In the years to come, I shall remember my father and the father figures in my life, and you will remember those in yours. And you and I will aspire to leading our lives and to mentoring our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and all of those within our reach that we can positively influence. We will do our absolute best. Love those children with all your heart. Teach them wisely the lessons that will serve them well. Model for them the values you embody, the values for which you stand. This is our moment to make a difference. This is our time. As always, it has been a joy to be back with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm sure you're like me. I've been sitting there and thinking about my father. All of y'all were their father, y'all's father. He taught you a lot, and he was a personality to reckon with. But I happen to be one of his favorites. Yeah, but, in my mind, I was.
That's great.
Like the oldest of 6 children, so.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, so anyway, it just is. So everybody have a good week. Thank you so much for coming our way.